I'll repeat part of what I just told you, which is just that, yeah, my audience is mostly, we talk about conspiracies most of the time on this channel, but we also like to talk about, humanity and human stories and the difficulties and triumphs and things like that
Dude,
come with being human, right? So,
yeah,
someone like yourself, I know you've, had a fucking twisted path. And, you know,
yeah,
I, what I like to teach people the most is that there's always a way back from shit. It doesn't really matter how far down a rabbit hole or how far down a K hole we might end up. There's always a path back.
that's totally true, man. And I definitely speak on that myself. I mean, yeah, I'm right into conspiracies and all that type of stuff. So this sounds right up my alley, man.
Cool. Well, why don't you start with, yeah, man, kind of telling people about that story. Obviously we're going to talk about your music. You're a musician, but
Yep.
life has been a little bit strange, and you've, kind of tripped a few times on your way to where you are now. But I also know, you've done a fucking fantastic job of coming back from it. So I think sharing that is important.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it, man. And the only reason I ever save these types of things is to try to spread hope, to the people that think there's absolutely no hope left. That's what I really like, the people I really want to speak to, because that's how I felt. I literally felt that like I was a fentanyl IV addict for almost 11 years straight, right? And I was also using crack cocaine and all that, and pretty much every drug under the sun. But my thing was fentanyl. I needed it, or I'd get intensely sick without it. And at first it was just a bit of a chip on my shoulder. I just other drugs didn't really agree with me that much. I wasn't that big of a drug guy. I was more of like a drinker at first, but I found that drug one day, and yeah, it just hit me like nothing else. Like it's just like, wow, I love this feeling, and I need to feel like this every day. And that obviously eventually turned into a physical addiction. And yeah, I went through hell, man. I lost a lot of friends, a lot of really dear friends, really close friends to me. I brought people back lots of times that have OD'd in front of me. I myself have OD'd 7 times and have been brought back, so which is pretty crazy. And what I don't know what finally did it for me, man. I just so had enough, and I've always pictured more for my life. And I'm a musician, and it took music completely away from me, bro. I was a completely different person doing like a completely different style of music that I would never be doing. I lost all my guitars, all that stuff that I had saved up my whole life for. So like it was hell, man. Like losing everything and having to get it back, and then losing it again, having to get it back. It was just constant struggles, because getting sober was a hell of a thing too. It was a process, and it's still a process, and you always got to tread carefully. But I don't know. I'll let you ask another question on that or whatever.
A couple things came up. I don't know. Most people have never OD'd. So why don't you, if you've done it 7 times, why don't you kind of explain maybe a little bit what that's like? And also, it's essentially a near death experience, right? So I would
Yeah.
imagine you probably had some, what people might consider hallucinations, but visions, experiences through them that might be interesting too.
The only times I've had like hallucinations is where I had like very near overdoses when I was on like a crazy nod, like fucking sorry, pardon my French.
Are you fine?
Completely out of my mind, right? But honestly, every time I've overdosed, besides this one time, I felt myself going under, and I was with a friend, and I could feel it. And it took like probably about 10 seconds. And I was trying to mutter out to him not to do his shot, and I couldn't get those words out. And I went down, and I guess my girlfriend at the time, she happened to come back and saw us both in like mangled positions on the floor. And she thought we were like just joking, right? And then she comes to see that we're not breathing and stuff. So she called up a friend of mine who luckily had Narcan on him. She had to go drive there. pick up Narcan, come back, and all I remember is coming back to her like screaming and like crying and like super frantic over top of me, like just like amazed that I made it through. So that was the most profound one. Any other time, it's just been like you just go out, man. It just complete blackness. That's honest to God all I ever remember. Just complete blackness.
Yeah, I've always heard that with it's very rare, it seems, that when people have, even though it is very close to a near-death experience, that when they're ODing, that they really do have any of those experiences you might hear along with it. That's 90% of the time what I end up hearing is it was just
Yeah, because
black.
you're so inebriated, right? Like you're not there anymore. Like yeah, but there's been times where I've been on the edge, you know, not like dead or nothing, but like riding the line, and like you definitely have like some weird like kind of hallucination things, and I don't know, you don't really remember a lot of it. It's kind of like a dream in a way when you're that out of it. Yeah, but horrible drug. Would not recommend it for anybody. The withdrawals are absolute complete torture, and I'm just grateful that I finally found my way like away from that, because like I said earlier, I was the guy that I like literally never thought I would ever find sobriety, and I was okay with that. And I was okay with that being the way I would go out, you know. And looking back on that, it kind of turns my stomach a bit,
Yeah.
you know, because I don't really feel that way anymore, you know. And it's sad the relationships I got ruined, you know, and the friendships I got ruined, and you know, me just thinking that way, you know, because there is always a way out, you know.
When you
There
decided
walk out.
you chose sobriety, let's put it that way. Obviously, it always comes with, setbacks and what the people would call relapses, things like that. But kind of like the process, what kind of things did you start changing?
I started doing like more of the music again. I started getting back into music, started buying back pieces of my like a studio, like you know, like a laptop and like an interface, guitars, bass, etc. Started buying things back to build myself, you know, a nice little decent setup where I could record guitars again and make videos. And yeah, and just you know, you have to have a regimen, you know. So working out is another thing that really helps me. Obviously working, you know what I mean, to get a job is very important as well, and to you know save your money. And it was a lot of tripping and falling in the start. There was a lot of relapse and then start again, relapse, start again. Luckily I have a really cool mom, and she was actually very supportive in the end, because she realized like something has to be done, and she wasn't willing to just like toss me out kind of thing anymore. And she really helped me out. And she understood when I would like relapse, you know, and she would help me get back to the start and help me not feel so horrible, because it'd be such a guilt feeling, bro, you know. But yeah, you know, that's definitely a part of it. But don't guilt yourself. That's the thing. Because it's all steps, and you learn as you go. You know what I mean? And the best thing to do is to talk about it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure, right. It's that's almost the last thing you want to talk about when you're struggling with something like that. But especially, well, I shouldn't say this, but because I'm a guy, I know, like, there's that part of you as a man that almost feels weak to ask for help in any kind of situation, especially when it's something like that, because you're admitting that you've lost control, right?
And you definitely have. And that, you know, that took me like years to really like come to terms to that. Like, holy shit, like I can't trust myself. I've lost complete control of myself, and it's scary, you know? Like it's scary, man. Yeah, it's not good.
Losing trust in yourself is worse than losing trust in others, I think, and
Yeah,
say,
yeah,
like, when you are getting yourself to that point where you're losing trust in everything around you, you really have to focus on yourself to maintain that foundation, because if you lose that trust, that's when shit really gets scary, right? So
yeah, exactly, bro. Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. And that was the worst part, you know, realizing like I had to realize I had to save my own life, you know, like no one could do it for me. You know what I mean? I could get all the support I want and everything, but it all comes down to me and doing it for myself, which I finally realized like I never actually like really fully committed to it, or never really wanted to, I guess. But, you know, what finally changed things is I wanted to. I wanted that for myself. I was just so sick of being sick all the time and broke all the time and the living conditions and constantly moving and oh yeah, being on the street, etc. Like, hanging around people that, no offense to them or anything, just I don't know, just people I wouldn't normally see myself hanging around with and stuff, and just all sorts of shit, like you'd surprise yourself.
Yeah. And the next step to that shame and guilt is when we start to get to kind of like with most recovery programs, they would call it kind of the amends stage, right? Where you start to reflect on, you've already mentioned like relationships you've lost, stupid decisions you've made, like selling your gear off and things like
Yeah.
that. But not beating yourself up over that shame is it's very difficult because those things haunt you. It's almost like
Hmm.
it's almost like the drug or the spirit of the drug or the ghost of the drug rather is like throwing those things forward to be like, don't you want to get rid of this again? Don't you want to get rid of this again?
Yeah. And that was a big thing, when I finally stopped doing that and looking at things like that as a way to get high, and made boundaries for myself. Boundaries is another big thing. I went to rehab for a little bit in Wasaga Beach, and that really helped. Metamorphosis Care Center. Yeah, it was a good place, and I learned a lot. And boundaries was the biggest thing I learned. And that's important for sure.
Explain that then. Like from that position, what did boundaries kind of look like?
Saying no to certain people that cutting certain people out of my life, um uh, denying to be treated a certain way anymore. Yeah, like I don't know. There's a bunch. I just can't think of them off the top of my head, really.
That was good. Or even
Yeah,
like not being willing to treat yourself that way anymore, which you already kind of.
yeah, that's basically what I yeah. Definitely.
And then obviously, like you mentioned, like you were a musician before that, so it's not like that's the thing that came along and changed everything. However,
Yeah,
you learned a very important thing, which is that that is also a type of drug, but it's a more natural kind of drug that we don't have the same kind of negative effects to.
yeah, yeah, definitely. It's definitely my much more healthy outlet. And it's before all this, it was always my like absolute obsession and my favorite absolute thing to do ever was music. So yeah, in a weird way, it brought me back. And good friends and stuff like that. Yeah, support. You know, and consistency. And just getting back up every time I would fail instead of what I used to do. If I would fail or whatever in the early stages of getting better, I would be hard on myself. So the fact I'd be hard on myself, I would continue the relapse. But now if one like not now, but like when one would happen in later stages, I would just snip it in the bud, and just keep moving after one. You know what I mean? So it does get better and it gets easier. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And then even the the kind of discipline of learning to play guitar, right?
Mm.
It's you learned that through repetition, through being inspired to pick it up and play it until your fingers hurt and doing that
Yeah,
over and over and again, because like even when you're away from the guitar, you're obsessing about that guitar and getting back to it. It's like, oh, I bet you I could do this, and like all of those
yeah,
things. That's
yeah.
very similar to the addiction in to begin with, right? So it's
Hmm.
almost a very because it's so much healthier, it's almost the perfect kind of transition to have, right? Especially if
Yeah,
you had already learned ahead of time. But even if you hadn't, picking up something like an art, whether that's music or any type of visual art, whatever that art is. And the other one would be, you mentioned physical exercise, martial arts would be another thing, because
yeah,
they're so similar, and the effect that they have on you is very similar as well. Like people will talk about a runner's high, right? That euphoria
yeah.
you get that from lifting weights, you get that from playing music a lot, right? Like
Hmm.
and so having something like that in your pocket that you could then bring out and replace that thing with is definitely helpful. And especially a lot of the things that come along with our self-destructive tendencies like drinking and drugs, the kind of community that we might feel with the other people who are ruining themselves too, and the social aspect of that, that can also be replaced with things like art, music, and martial arts, working out as well, because you do come into another kind of group setting where other people have the same goal, right? So
Mm,
those things are important, because like understanding kind of the habits and behaviors attached to addiction is a lot of how you break those habits and behaviors, right? And
yeah.
you really do need replacements, similar to like why you see a lot of people pick up cigarettes when they're in rehab, because they feel like they need something to replace that physical addiction with, right? The chemical addiction. The
Mhm.
behavioral patterns that come along with addictive behavior also need to be replaced, and music is a great way to do it.
Definitely, man. Yeah. Honestly, it's like different like this way around, you know what I mean? It's like I don't know. I'm writing differently. I just noticed things like that. My taste in music is like a little different too. Maybe that's because I've gotten a bit older too. But yeah, I don't know, man. It's a great release. You know, it's definitely my favorite like thing to do. To be honest with you, is just to write music and make songs and release because you have that emotional release. You know what I mean? And that's important. You know, that's like where therapy. That's where it's like therapeutic for me in a way because it's like an emotional release.
Yeah. Did
Yeah.
did you utilize therapy when you were going through recovery?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, all sorts. Yeah, and it really helps too. I find talking to people, it helps. Yeah, definitely.
I think
Hmm.
it's kind of one of those things where you're hearing it as you're saying it, and that's helping.
Pardon me.
Is it one of those things for you where you're hearing yourself say it, and therefore you're actually hearing kind of what
Yeah,
you're saying, and then it's
basically. And then I realized, yeah, it's not like because it depends on the psychiatrist or whoever you're talking to. You know what I mean? Like, but yeah, it did do me some good for sure too. Therapy for sure. Hmm.
good.
A
So
lot of it was sorry. Yeah, a lot of it was just mental and just you know what I mean. Like I said, I had a fucking enough, man, and I just yeah, I just couldn't live like that anymore. You know what I mean? I see a better future for myself, and as it got better, and as I kept staying sober, old friends of mine came back in my life, and then that would motivate me to go more forward, you know. And then more old friends would come back in my life because they see that I'm doing good again. And dude, like things like that are golden. Like it means so much. So like that's another thing that kept me going, you know, was the support of my friends and stuff.
well, if any of them end up listening to this, thank you, because
Yeah, big
that's
time.
necessary, right? Because if we abandon people when they're looking for a pathway back, what does that say about us, right? Like, yes, I understand maybe having to cut toxic people out when they're going through things, or when they're
Yeah,
in a
yeah,
bad place, or when they're maybe haven't figured themselves out and are just being bad people, whatever that reason is. I understand that, but we need to keep windows open, I think, for people to come back as well, right? This
yeah.
comes up in like social circles all the time. Like, I was just listening to a debate not too long ago about I guess it was like an OnlyFans model who turned to Christianity and is now kind of like speaking from that thing, and a lot of people are kind of shitting on her and not giving her the time. Some of it might be valid in that she didn't delete her OnlyFans right away, she just raised the prices. So I mean, this might not be a best example, but someone like that, we should be kind of going, well done, right?
Yeah,
Not
for sure.
looking
Yeah,
for reasons to pick at her.
definitely. Yeah, I think I heard of that. That sounds familiar.
It was recent, so you probably did. I don't
Yeah,
know too much about her. I don't do the whole porn world, but
yeah,
I guess that's where she came from. And yeah, I just, like I said, if we don't give people the opportunity to apologize, make amends, and prove that they can come back, or prove that they're actually willing to come back, then we're not helping, right? Like,
exactly. And like let them kind of find themselves and find their own way a bit first to prove that trust barrier, right? To break that trust barrier down a little bit. Because it takes time to build trust back. And I understand that. And I completely understand why certain friends completely went away, and I hold no hate in my heart or anything like that towards any of them. I completely understand. And I'm just grateful that I earned, some trust back, and you know what I mean? And just it's good to be around my old friends again and everything like that. There's these rewards you get along the path of recovery, and it's beautiful.
Yeah. Well, tell us about your band, your music.
Okay, well, I do a couple solo projects. Mainly it's just stuff under my own name, but I do have another solo project called Everything in Ruin, and that's all on my YouTube channel. So I have a whole album out under there, under Everything in Ruin, and then I have a whole bunch of cover songs as well, and like some playthroughs of some of my own songs and stuff. And I'm starting a new project, and it's just going to be under my name. And I just finished writing my first song for it, so that's going to be up on YouTube soon. But yeah, that's what I do. I used to play in a few bands back in the day, like I did vocals and guitar and stuff. Um, in a band called Rules of Deception, and a band called Syrinx as well. Um, that was quite a while ago now. So I just kind of had went the solo route because like a lot of my friends and stuff are in bands now, and I just can't find like a stable, good amount of dudes to, stay, you know, uh, like committed to it. So I just decided, hey, screw it, I'll just try doing it myself, and that's what I've been doing. So
But
yeah.
that's also how you'll find a decent musicians too, man. Like, I,
Yeah,
I give people this analogy all the time that if you want something, you're kind of, our tendency is to look for someone to walk along with us. But the truth is, if we just start walking towards that thing, other people are going to be like, "Hey, I'm going that way too," right?
yeah,
And,
yeah,
I went through the same thing. I'm older than you, and I went through the same thing in a small town where it's like, for me it was a little bit harder because at the time I didn't really play instruments very well, and I was just singing and just
yeah,
writing vocals, and so a one man band in that way doesn't exist, right? So
yeah, that's true.
but just kind of like sticking with it, putting that out there, getting to know the other musicians through town, talking to them, eventually led to, chance experiences where I met a bandmate here. We started a band here. We played like a battle of the bands with bands from out of town, and then kind of ended up hooking up with members of bands from other town to jam with and stuff. And then the next thing you know, we had a whole other new band, right? So the important thing is that we don't let, you know, you could very easily go, oh, the fucking town sucks. There's nobody here who plays music. I'm just gonna
Yeah,
not do anything. Or you can just be like, ah, no, I'll just do my own thing then, right? And
yep.
that'll probably be what leads you towards, any of those holes you need to fill.
Yeah, put yourself out there, you know what I mean? So like my YouTube channel, I kind of look at it like a resume for like what I'm capable of or whatever. Like, you know what I mean? So that's like my main project. And the odd time I have like artists hit me up and they want me to do guitar tracks for them. So I'll record guitar tracks over one of their songs for them, you know what I mean? So I've been doing a bit of work here and there doing that and stuff as well. But other than that, yeah, I just been doing my own thing and just yeah, just trying to fill up the videos as much as I can on my channel, getting the subscribers up there and stuff, and just yeah, I got another video coming out tomorrow, so you know,
It'll probably
yeah,
be when this comes out too. So but yeah,
sick, sick.
having the that outlet, that's gonna that thing to focus on, definitely very valuable, right? And I wish everybody could find that for themselves, even not that it has to be music obviously, but whatever that thing is that can make the rest of the world go away.
Yeah, I know. And that's what I tell like a lot of, like people that are still struggling and stuff is, like there's got to be some sort of like alternative, like I wish there was like an alternative, like and obviously as a musician, I try to push music on them or learning an instrument or whatever, but some people it's not their thing. So I don't know, there's sports and stuff. There's so many different types of things you can do. But a depression and all the things that come with getting sober too make it really hard, to get out and do certain things too. That's another hard part about getting sober. Was like the pause, like after all the physical shit and stuff was like the pause, man. Like post acute withdrawal symptom. It's like all mental and it lasts for a fucking long time and it's just absolute Like, yeah, it's just complete dreadful depression. And, I never experienced depression like that, like it's just, but it eventually subsides, and, but yeah, like that was one of the worst parts of getting better was the pause, I would
When
say.
when did you come up with the name Everything in Ruin?
Oh God, a long time ago. Probably when I was like 20 or 19. So like, yeah, like about 14 years ago.
Would it be before everything went to ruin?
That's the ironic part. It's like I freaking prophesized my future or something. Because no, it was before I was really even into drugs or anything. And then I met a certain person and she, well, I ended up getting introduced to, yeah, and but it was like 2 years before I, yeah, got into my addiction. And that last, I was 21 when I got into that stuff, and that went on for like straight. As soon as I touched it, I just freaking, yeah, it was like game on. And that went on for basically, I've been clean for about a year and a half, so it went on for, yeah, I was like 31.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because before the drug comes along, the hole that it's looking to fill is already there, right?
Hmm.
So it would, it's almost in the band name, that
Yeah.
and the reason I ask is because I know it, like had to name a lot of stuff. I've been in more than one band, and I know what kind of meaning the names hold for us and where they come
Yeah.
from. So that's actually why I asked the question, because I had a
Yeah.
feeling it was probably almost like, not, I don't want to say a self-fulfilling prophecy in that this is what you wanted, right? But it was
No, yeah,
almost
no.
like your subconscious was like, just so you know, a couple years from now,
You're
every
gonna be a little screwed for a while.
yeah, right, yeah,
Dude, no. I gotta say that that's so sick because you're the first person that's ever said that, man. And I've always thought of that. You know what I mean? That's kind of why I kept the name too, because it did like prophesize what happened. And as I was recording the album, though, once I hit that point, like it took me like a good year to write the album. And after I was done writing the album and all that, and when I was in the recording process, that's kind of when I got into the stuff. You know what I mean? Yeah. So like there is like recording sessions where I was, yeah, and stuff. So that's kind of where it started. You know what I mean? So that's, yeah, it's just really like weird or prophetic. So that's why I kept the name. You know what I mean? But the name of the album is Transcension, which, and it's about going from like a crazy, intense, like crazy whatever hellish hard time to success, basically, to transcending to success. I don't know, I'm not good with super fancy words, but you know what I'm saying. Right?
yeah. Triumph is what it is. I think that's
Yes,
always
there
the
you go.
best
I
word.
like that.
I love the word triumph for post
Yeah.
addiction because it's I don't know. There's a lot of very big struggles with being human that can come, but that's one of the hardest because it's something that we're doing to ourselves, right?
Yeah.
It's much easier on not that it's easy, but it's much easier to come to terms with something that someone else does to us than it is
Yeah.
with things that we do to ourselves like that, especially with an addictive cycle, because you're sitting there almost like a monk behind a glass watching yourself do all of this insane stuff, and
Dude,
you're
yes.
like, don't do it, what the
Yes.
dude, what are you doing? Oh, man, what are you doing? But you
There's been
can't stop
times,
it. Yeah,
yeah, like at the end where I was like, just starting to kind of try to like, be like, I was realizing like how fucking bad like shape I was in. Like I was like 110 pounds, like, dude, all my veins were shot, like complete mess, dude, like on my deathbed, basically. And there'd be times, where I would be on my way to my dealers, like, what the fuck am I doing? Like, just like in my head, like, should I like run to my girlfriends at work and like ask for help? Or should I was literally ready to just walk up to anybody and be like, help me. Like, you know what I mean? And I was just so ill though, and just covered in sweat and just stinging sweat, and just I'd have to get my fix, and fucking it was such a horrible feeling, those slips when they would happen, man. It was, because not everyone understands. And the girl I was dating at the time didn't, like fully, you know what I mean? So it was hard to be open, you know what I mean? And just like go see her, or and certain people, like a lot of people were, judgmental. It's a lot more, it's gotten a lot better, the way people look at it, like with stigma and stuff, because it's such a huge epidemic. But Yeah, man. Like there's been so many times where I've just been desperate for help, but I just didn't know what to do. It's just like your hands, you just get like it's like you get possessed, and you just something takes over you, and you just yeah indulge.
It is exactly like you are possessed. And yeah, I think that anyone listening to this, what you've said there about, and I just love the quote, I've never seen a life transformation that didn't involve someone getting tired of their own bullshit.
Yeah, like bro, like you're not even getting high anymore. You're just getting well because you get so sick without the drug. You know what I mean? Like you're doing mass doses to get to get a fraction of what you would get before. Like it's crazy how fast your tolerance goes up. You know what I mean? Like it's sorry, man. Yeah, it's just yeah, it's not good. And that's one thing people have to remember if they get better for a little bit, their tolerance drops. And some people will go back and do like the same amount they would normally do, and then they drop. Like, you know what I mean? So people have to keep that in mind too for safety.
Yeah, it's one of the dangers with relapsing is that people do exactly that, right? Even with
Yeah.
alcohol, people will do that where they quit
Mhm.
drinking and they go out on a bender and they don't realize like your liver doesn't know how to process that anymore. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's the same thing with those harder drugs like that. And that one's an interesting one, man, because yeah, I mean that oxy and the combination thereof and this part of Ontario has been disturbing. I
Yes.
yeah, the amount of
Big
people like
time.
almost to segue into the conspiracy world here, the amount of that has flooded this area is frightening, and it's like it almost seems like I didn't get caught up in it. I moved away, and I came back and saw so many people that did fall into that trap, right? And just the amount of time it took off of their life, and the struggles that I've seen that they've had or heard from them that they've had, and just seeing it in such a because it is a small town, it is a kind of a series of small towns, right? When you think of
Yeah,
Muskoka, but the
definitely.
volume of it, right? It looks like if you're just looking at it from that perspective, it looks like somebody ran a fucking experiment up here to see like how bad it could be. And then that started spreading all over the place.
Man, that's yeah, like that's deep. That's deep. Yeah, like you never know. Like I honestly, man, like you have any interesting conspiracies you'd want to share?
Oh, well, I mean, that's what I do full time. My life is this conspiracy theory because
Yeah.
I was raised in cults, and so my whole worldview is based around that I can kind of see that structure in just about everything,
Yeah.
and proof is in the result that it's usually there too, right? And yeah, it's not. We don't have so much reporting of things, stories like this in Canada, but we hear about it happening in the States all the time. We'll hear about it happening in Europe all the time. We'll hear about it happening in other countries all the time where they test out new pharmaceuticals on an unwilling set of the population just to see how bad does addiction get? How fast do these things spread?
Yeah.
How much effect does it have, right? And
Like
um, it's impossible to ever get answers out of it, no matter how many FOIA requests get made or any of that stuff. But this is not new that it would happen. So, the fact that it could happen in Canada in a small town like the one we live in
it
is
is like a
perfectly
giant
reasonable. Yeah.
it is like a giant experiment. That's yeah, that's huh.
And just in general, man, like going back to certain wars overseas that had to do with opium fields, and
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden we have this. Yeah, I don't think any of that can like to call that a conspiracy theory as opposed to just following a straight line. Sounds more like a conspiracy theory that's not what has happened, right? So, but yeah, man, like that's a terrible drug, and the way that it has ruined lives, it's really really sad.
Yeah, honestly, the impact is dreadful. Like for parents, for kids, for like, it's just outrageous how fast it's grown too. Like every summer is kind of scary, because like every year that passes, I've lost quite a few people, and it's just I don't know, man. I just wish it would stop. I don't know, you know, and I don't know. I try to spread hope the best I can with my music and stuff. Like, I don't know, whatever good it can do. And with my experiences, you know, I try to share them and, you know, show that I'm, you know, kind of like in a way living proof. I'm still going with my recovery and everything, but like, you know, I beat it. So like so far, like I'm always going to be an addict, but there's ways to control it, you know? And you know, I had to go on methadone to help me stay clean, which I'm still currently on, working my way off of. But it it helped me, you know, get off the harder stuff, which was really killing me. So that's the next step. Is getting off methadone, but it's controlled by a doctor. That's the difference. You know what I mean? So yeah, and it is treatment. So
Did you
yeah.
ever end up with someone kind of like I'm thinking more of like Alcoholics Anonymous, but like a sponsor?
I've never had one. No, like I've kind of been journeying it kind of semi alone. You know what I mean? Because it was really weird. Like when I got clean, my ex broke up with me. You know, at that time, like, and I found out she was with this other guy. When I was in rehab, she said she was pregnant. Like she was pregnant. She said it was my son and all this. Um, and then she just completely cut me out of her life. This one phone call I had with her in rehab, and like that messed me up completely, you know. And but through, you know, and then there was, you know, that's when I was in rehab, and I got out, and there was relapses, you know what I mean? Because I was messed up over the breakup, but I finally got I finally got ahead of things, and you know, things like the relapses slowed down and stuff, and I don't know. I don't know really where I was going with that. I'm just trying to.
Yeah, I was kind of just the idea of having a sponsor is just knowing
Oh
someone
yeah, yeah.
who has been through
Sponsor.
it, right? Yeah. And
Yeah,
so, like, I was gonna part of why I asked was just to find out whether or not you had one, or if you had like maybe someone who filled that role for you, maybe someone like you could look to, being like, well, they beat it, and I can listen to their stories and that kind of thing.
yeah, yeah. That would be definitely helpful, you know. And I'm look like I have my psychiatrist. You know what I mean? And he's amazing, and he's got me on a good medication right now. That's been, you know, really helping and stuff. So I've been integrating myself back into life, and you know, day by day, just taking it. That's the best way to do it. You know what I mean? And this is the longest I've ever gone. And you know, I'm, you know, like I struggle still. You know, like with thoughts of using. I have very depressed days. Like I had a pretty depressed morning for no, like, you know, I don't know what reason. Just certain things will hit me out of nowhere, like any human being. You know. Um, but you know, you just gotta, you know, what I would do before, any small thing I would use as an excuse to use. You know what I mean? Any small thing. And you know, like now it's the complete opposite, you know what I mean? And yeah, it's lonely. Yeah, it's definitely lonely because before, like, everyone I was hanging out with, you know, weren't the right friends. You know, they were, you know, like using with me and stuff. So I've just been riding alone, like I said, but I've been having great friends of mine from the past come back in to my life, which is very rewarding. And yeah, I'm just still riding it out, man. And just every day is a new day, and just face them as they come, you know, and just try to stay positive as you can, you know, because I believe if you put out positive energy, it and into the universe, you know, like it comes back, and you know what I mean. So just make the best of your situation, no matter what it is, and that was one thing I had to kind of come to terms to, you know, was, you know, when I was in that really rough spot when I was first starting off, I had to, you know, come to terms with like, this is going to take a really long time. You know what I mean? And I kind of look at it like a jail term. You know what I mean? Just like a jail sentence. Like, okay, I'm going to be by myself. I'm just going to be doing this every day. Just work out, do this, like, play guitar, just like, you know. So yeah, having a schedule is super important, and following it through, and consistency, you know, and all that stuff. Good support system, like you said, like a sponsor would be good. Like I used to go to NA sometimes. That really helps too a bit, you know. Like I'm not too big of a group guy, But like I said, like my music's probably my biggest therapy, but yeah.
Yeah, I just it's always important, like I said, not only that when I was talking about allowing people a pathway back, but now that the I think social media has helped with the stigma a bit. People are sharing more stories like this, which gives people a light at the end of the tunnel to look at, right? Like,
Yeah.
um, I think about it with musicians sometimes because I've always been a huge Nine Inch Nails fan, and
Yeah, Trent Reznor.
yeah, I remember when he did the Fragile. A lot of that was about him kicking heroin.
Oh,
And,
really? Eh?
yeah, and he didn't talk about it obviously, and there was a big gap between, like, when he put out Perfect Drug and when he did the Fragile, and that was because he had to kick heroin. He was, went through the whole fall on his face and then eventually recover. But just that process of having to separate himself from the world, right? Like, and so
Yeah.
it really is that, where, like, if you have the opportunity, you really have to kind of put yourself in a new place around new
Yeah.
people.
That's
And
what I did. Like I moved away.
yeah. And
Hmm.
then what you said about scheduling, like that kind of thing is very important for addiction, obviously, but that kind of thing is important for anything we're trying to achieve, really. If we kind of leave things open, we don't really ever follow it. And, but you feel it as an addict, but, even if it's just a goal you're trying to achieve, if you don't do that, you probably won't end up there. And it's for all of the same reasons, as a matter of fact. So yeah, that's a good lesson in and of itself to set yourself a schedule. But one thing, whether it's addiction, just about anything we want to achieve, one thing mistake I see people make all the time is, they're looking for really quick results, right? They're looking for a
Yeah.
really quick fix, and we're kind of conditioned to do that with, like, the pill society. But whether it's losing weight or whether it's kicking an addiction, looking at it right from the beginning as this is going to take a long time,
Yeah.
probably one of the best things we can do for ourselves.
Literally, you have to accept that, man. And you know what I mean? I was like, I'm going to be alone for a long time. This is going to take a long ass time. And it did, and I'm still dredging it out, dude. Like, you know, still really rough days and stuff, but whatever. Like, just carry on. But yeah, definitely, you got to realize that it's going to be a commitment. You got to commit yourself to it, like, you got to start holding yourself accountable. You know what I mean? Like, you really do. Like, I had to realize the times I was a douchebag. You know what I mean? And there was a lot of freaking times where I look back like, oh my God, dude. It's like, why the hell did I do that? Like, I was such a douchebag. So, like, yeah, there's things like that help you quit too, like when you're using and etc., the things you would do, etc., and say to the people you love and stuff. It's just horrible, so you're not yourself. So
Yeah.
yeah. Hmm.
Well, what's next? Like, what now that you've kind of rescued yourself from that, where do you want to go?
Well, now I'm currently saving up for a vehicle and getting my license back because that was one thing I lost in my addiction was my license, unfortunately. So getting that back, and I'm trying to build my channel up, my YouTube channel, and get as many followers as I can. And I'm working on an album right now, and it's just pure sludgy, crazy death metal, techie death metal, sludge metal stuff, and it's instrumental. Because I can't do vocals really, so um, yeah, so like working on that and just seeing where life takes me. Trying not to think too far into the future because sometimes I think when I do that, I freak myself out and I give myself too many expectations.
That was actually the answer I was looking for. It's-
Yeah, yeah, you know what I
yeah,
mean. Like I kind of, and I do that a lot, and then I'll be like, "Shit, man, why did I book this?" Or like, not like you know what I mean. Like certain things, like I'll just totally, yeah, I don't know. I forget what I was saying now.
oh, it's another important thing. That's kind of why I asked the question. It's another important thing too, where people aren't, like, trying to draw, like, their whole future out, because, like you said, you're kind of one day at a time, right? And
Yep, yep,
obviously that applies to addicts, but I think that human beings in general, if they were to kind of shorten that, future goal range down just a little bit and start seeing things in front of them a little bit more clearly, being a little bit more present because they're not so in anticipation of that future, it would
Yeah,
help them, right? Like,
yeah,
and then another thing that you mentioned there, something that you mentioned that I wanted to bring up is just the difference between quality and quantity, right? Like, when we're going through a lot of these things, like, we got lots of buddies, we got lots of friends, lots of people are getting fucked up with us, right? There's this quantity to it, and we kind of get used to that when we do, because no life change, your old life, your new life is going to cost you your old life, right? And so
yeah,
are going to have to isolate. You are going to have to give up a lot of friends. You are going to end up kind of alone on the other end of it. So reminding yourself of that idea of quality over quantity also helps a lot. Is like, kind of like you said, like, you're going to have good days, you're going to have bad days, but if you can focus more on the good days, it's really going to help on those bad days, right? Just
yeah,
really appreciating quality as much as you can over expecting it to be all the time or constant drip feed, because that's what we were getting from the drugs, right?
yeah. Or bro, even just the little things in life, having a nice, comfy, warm bed to sleep in, clean clothes every day, food to eat, a roof over my head, not having freaking all these crazy drug addicts after me or freaking hounding me all the time and stuff, and just like, you know what I mean, like just this peace of mind.
Even just the
Dude,
stress of having to score when you need to score, you know what I mean? Like,
that
having
that was
that
the
there.
worst, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I would always get the pre dope sickness, I would call it. Like right when I was running out, like my last shot wouldn't do anything. It's like a mental, psychological weird thing I would get. And I would get super dope sick right before I would get my stuff. And like it was just, yeah, it got psychological for me. I sort of gotta make myself sick sometimes, you anticipate it so much, you're fixed, right? It's disgusting. Yeah, yeah, it's sad, man. And I just, like I said, though, one day at a time. That's all you can do. Don't bite off more than you can chew. Yeah, just be yourself and just, learn to love yourself, which is one thing I'm still kind of working on. But learn to, in this like type of time that you have on your own, you start to learn who you are. You know what I mean? And that's very important. And so you want to be cool with who you are, and you want to learn to love yourself and try to think of things that you do that are worthy and stuff. So those are things that I try to do as well as is like self-love and stuff like that, because that really helps. As corny as it is, just looking in the mirror and telling yourself that you love yourself. Like those are things I learned in rehab. Little things like that and stuff. um yeah, and not keeping things in for too long either, because like that's always been my problem before, is I would keep everything in, and like that wouldn't help, So yeah, definitely share how you're feeling,
Yeah. I try to remind people often that, kind of on an evolutionary basis, we're very well trained to see bad things, right? We're very well trained to find the negative, the scary, the things that we should be worried about, all of that in the world. And it's so well trained that we have a really hard time programming ourselves to go the other way, to see the good things. Right?
Yeah,
We overlook so many good things in our bitching about the bad things.
yeah, like we have it made.
Yeah, because we're not trained to see those, simple things as
Yeah,
beautiful or as magical, right? And like
yeah.
you said, if you've never been an addict with no food, then it's that 3 meals a day that has always just come for you, you're probably taking for granted, right? And
Oh yeah,
if you've
big
never
time.
been so physically dirty and away from a shower, you can forget how
Yeah,
important it is to just keep clean. And all those things,
yeah.
they seem normal, like everyday stuff.
Oh dude, yeah, like you kidding me? Yeah, like just having a normal life that way and everything is just, yeah, it's just like how the hell did I live the way I used to, like freaking, I mean, I would always manage to like shower and stuff somehow and stuff, but like I was, you know what I mean, like it was rough, man, it was rough. It just feels good to feel healthy, like a lot more healthy than I was. And just, yeah, man, like it's a beautiful day out, the sun's shining, and I'm just, yeah, happy to be alive.
Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's worth the effort, you know, if you're just listening to this, and maybe if you've never had a problem with addiction before, it's worth the effort of starting to train yourself to notice those little things now and not let it get that far, you know.
Hmm.
Part of the thing I teach in my class is that we're going to go through these cycles anyways. Being aware of the cycle is what allows us to go through it without falling on our face, right, or getting stuck
Yeah.
in it somehow.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Well, why don't you tell people where they can find your YouTube channel, and we'll wrap this up.
Awesome. Okay. Well, you guys can find me at www.youtube.com/Anthony Chris Mignella. So that's my full name. So Anthony Chris Mignella. So if you could type it out or
It'll
whatever.
be in the title here. Yeah, yeah.
Awesome, brother. Thank you so much, man.
Yeah, man. And yeah, the last thing I say, thank you, because you know,
My pleasure.
it takes balls to do it. It takes a lot of character to come back, and you're here, man. So hope
Yeah.
you stay with us, and you know, just between you and I, anything I can do to help, you know how to reach me. And
Respect, man.
cheers, man.
I appreciate it, brother. You have yourself an awesome day, eh?
Say bye to everybody at home.
Yeah. Take care, everybody. All right. Cheers.